So if I could introduce Bill Jordan, whose title is Our Engineering Heritage, Newcastle and Beyond. Bill's had a lifetime commitment to the history and heritage of engineering, with heritage engineer in the restoration of the Anglican Cathedral after the earthquake, sings in the magnificent choir, a custodian and operator of the historic crane, former honeysuckle workshop, saved with great difficulty the new museum. He most recently worked on Aboriginal engineering archaeological sites in Victoria. Note here for me, Newcastle's most remarkable Aboriginal heritage recently had the largest KFC in the Southern Hemisphere built on top of it, which would have produced a lot of problems for archaeologists in the future when they're looking at the mid where KFC had been. So we could ask you, Bill, to take over. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bill. So, I know what Margaret Henry's like, and she said, you'll speak about that. My subject's basically 19th century engineering heritage, so what I say, it's going to be random on it, I suppose, the best way, but it's going to try and touch on things that are important for Newcastle. Okay, the convict mining, etc., the harbour, the AA company, expansion of mining, the railways, and a little intrigue about what came before after my experiences in Victoria. So the convict mining, most of us have seen these pictures, the early mining at the bottom of what was then Signal Hill, before the breakwater went in. And that sketch, which I think Johnny dug up a few years ago from the Mitchell Library, wasn't done until the 1850s, but it showed where the early convict pits were under what is now Fort Scratchley, and they've been relocated again, of course. But innovation. The second lot of convict mining was up on the hill, on the grounds of James Fletcher Hospital and behind that. And they dug this, what I think is the oldest civil engineering work still working in Australia, to drain the mines out through the cliff face. This was before it was quite overgrown. And what intrigues me about that from an engineering point of view, they're using probably the most efficient hydraulic shape that you can get for such a culvert, ovoid, but with a low flow channel. And this sort of hydraulics is really late 18th century, early 19th century, but somebody here, I don't know if it's James Morissette or his predecessor, Thomas Thompson, we're not quite sure exactly when that was done, but someone there, had, even though they weren't Royal Engineers, they did have the hydraulic knowledge when they dug that. And it was then linked up, the mines were all blocked up, it was linked up to a brick culvert in the 1850s, which now passes up Church Street to the corner of New Common Street. It still works. And of course, you all know about the convict lumberyard, so it's going like proverbial. The harbour, which of course is engineering, start to finish. That's one of the earliest sketches we have, 1816, particularly notable for the fact that by 1816 there were already 3 shipwrecks. Something had to be done, and that's what Macquarie insisted on doing when they formed the breakwater. That's what the inner harbour was like when it was first discovered. Basically lots of small sand islands, about a fathom, 6 feet deep. And nobbies was quite high, and the sailing ships used to lose their wind as they tried to round it. And of course they, odd ones went into the Stockton foreshore and came to grief where Macquarie Pier now is. So the breakwater of Macquarie Pier is probably, yes, building on European experience and knowledge, but we were early adopters of what was one of the first such breakwaters anywhere in the world in modern times, when I say post-Roman times. The AA Company. Most people have seen the sketch, the first A pit from 1831 up on the hill near the Boltons. But what is really interesting was discovered by David Campbell a few years ago. And that's this bit of rail which is now in the Newcastle Museum. And it wasn't until it was cleaned up by the museum for display last year that we suddenly discovered that there on the side of it was AA Company. And this has caused tremendous excitement in the UK. In fact, Rod Caldwell has written a paper on this, has been invited to go over to the Historic Railways Conference there in June to present yet again. I presented his PowerPoint in Manchester 18 months ago to some of the early railway gurus. We didn't at that stage know it was an AA company. We thought it might have been second-hand railway. It was definitely indented in 1826, which makes it on the first, and the AA company had a specially cast forward. So that has caused excitement everywhere. And then that was originally in the A pit, which is the top red line, and then it was subsequently moved to the C pit for the incline down the hill. And it was near the C, it's near that incline that David Campbell found among builders' rubbish the piece of rail which had been discarded because one end broke off. And that, as terraces, so this would be probably 1890s thereabouts, the C as an SEA pit, a new winning pit out at Cook's Hill was operating until 1916. The terraces up Bingham Street are already there, and I haven't got a laser pointer, but you can see down the side of the hill where the incline came and it happened to join the AA company line here. And that's where the A pits relocated rail beam from. Now the mining expands. AA company of course went out into Hamilton area and other mining companies, Burwood, went out through Merriweather, etc. Most people know this, but it's all important. And there was not so much innovation, but they were getting the latest technology from the UK particularly. That is the C pit, or new winning pit, C as an SEA, which was up above what is now Nesta Park in Cook's Hill, or Bar Beach, operating 1885 to 1916. And the winding engine for it, which is a rare piece of kit, was used as a secondary winding engine out the Henley, I think it was colliery in the valley. And when it was about to be scrapped in the 1970s, a steam enthusiast trying to start a museum in Goulburn persuaded the mine to not scrap it but give it to him. The institution engineers recovered it from Goulburn about 5 or 6 years ago and transported it up to Newcastle. And it's now in the museum annex out of the old tool room of BHP. Everybody knows of any funding sources from which we can use to get it back into at least turning condition. Please let me know. That's the next big project for steam enthusiasts in the Hunt Valley. The railways, we know, are extended, separate system from Sydney, 1857 of course, what is now near Civic Station or the Honeysuckle Station, then out to Victoria Street Maitland and extended very rapidly thereafter. And of course all the colliery railways that form quite a network. Many people here of course can remember the Gully line in operation and certainly the line out to Belmont. And of course the railways have left us a great bit of heritage in the Crane down at the what is now the museum. Obviously that was taken before the museum was established there. It is the only rope-driven gigantic crane operating anywhere in the world. Again, I gave a presentation on this to the New Common Society and the Friends of the Manchester Museum 18 months ago, and they were rapt. They've got a later one there which has been improperly set up so that it can't operate. That one, the only change, apart from replacing the rope, is the change in the new electric motor replacing an old electric motor which replaced a steam engine. Now the big challenge we have, the group has been looking after that crane for 10 years, got it going pretty well. Unfortunately, the OHS, Nazis and Council are putting all sorts of obstacles in our path to get it going again, so we've got a big fight in our hands. And I just have to show that when I'm showing railways. I think that's a classic photo. Most people have seen it. at the corner of, for those who haven't seen it before, at the corner of Hunter Street and outside the tax office, basically. Like just after the war, okay, how am I going for time? Well, and
time to stop.
Be generous.
Carry on.
Right. Margaret did ask me to mention some work I've been doing in southwestern Victoria, and it does raise the question: what do we not know about the Aboriginal communities in this area? Because down there, we're starting to recover some incredible knowledge. It's that area there, and they had permanent settlements in stone huts, which was something, of course, that we were taught at school just didn't happen in Aboriginal communities. Now they were hunter-gatherers, rubbish. They set up sophisticated fish farming. The oldest archaeological evidence so far suggests that the channels, dams, sluices date at least to 6,600 years ago. And they were farming eels and other fish down there, smoking them and trading them extensively. These are, on the left is the archaeology from a group of huts. On the right is a reconstruction as to what they possibly look like. Very similar to Stone Age huts in Europe. And there are reports of sailors going between the new colony of Adelaide and the slightly older colony of Melbourne, going along the coast and seeing on the ridge behind the coast what to them looked exactly like the sorts of English villages they were used to seeing. Now, as far as we know, of course the squatters moved in and there was a 20-year war, Huron Wars, before they finally moved in, asked the government to move them into a mission, which is yet another story I can't go into now. But we now know there's possibly similar permanent settlements on some of the river systems, the Murrumbidgee, and they had a system of governance down there which was not what you expect in hunter-gatherers, tribal chieftains and a governance system. I first saw it more than 10 years ago. I was approached, in fact, in 1997 when I was chairing the National Committee of Engineering Heritage by Hans Bandler. Many people will be aware of Hans's wife, Faith Bandler, who's been an Aboriginal activist for many years. Hans unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Hans was a Sydney Water Board engineer and got in touch with me in my national position and said, I've been researching these Aboriginal hydraulic works for many years. What can we do about getting some recognition for them? And I travelled down there, this photo I took probably about 2000. And some of these communities, particularly at such a distance, some of these communities are very difficult to deal with. Not only that, I couldn't get any support from engineers in Victoria. As our local national president from last year, Merv Lindsay, said when he met up with them, when we were discussing going ahead with this, there are a mob of racist rednecks. But be that as it may, some of the channels and they had both dug canals and raised channels, 300 to 400 metres long, dams, fish traps. The dams were for holding ponds so that they could hold the eels and other fish and catch them in their traps when they needed them. I've now been told by the archaeologists that have been looking after this, they think they've now discovered up in the Grampians, near the Grampians, the eastern side of the Grampians, an Aboriginal canal that's something like 20 kilometres long. Again, so, and it also appears that the communities demolished most of their housing when they finally lost the war in this area. Quite tragic. This is a sketch from a surveyor in the 1880s. So people were aware of it when nothing happened. And we finally had it recognised as a National Engineering Landmark October last year. And there's Merv Lindsay, for some of you who there was an international presence at the unveil the marker last October. Well done.
Very good. You did well to get that in.